Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Wayne.
Good evening.
Wayne, good evening.
Hey, Wayne. Good evening. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Yourself?
Very good. Steve, how you doing?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, I'm just getting the YouTube queued up to go live here, and it's showing that we are live, so just want to give everybody a heads up.
One of you technocrats, would you help me? What button do I push to get my face seen?
You got to hit the video where it says stop video. There's like a mute button at the bottom of your screen. You probably got a red slash through it. Click on the video button. It looks like a camcorder. That should get you.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, Eric,
there you go.
That's why you're here, to assist me. Guide me.
I guess, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Everyone have a good Thanksgiving?
Very nice.
Good.
Can everyone see the screen? Is it sharing okay?
It's showing a road with two yellow stripes down the middle.
Oh, okay. That's not good. Let me try something else here. How's that? Is that
This plan
good, Steve.
okay? Good.
Plan
good.
Commission, December 2nd.
Perfect.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Wayne. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you.
One moment, I'll be right back.
6 o'clock, so I'm just going to wait until it is exactly 6.
Are you still with us, Steve?
There we go. You're turning up. Yeah. Good job.
I think he stepped away for a moment.
I'm back.
Steve?
Yes.
Why does your screen show the road with the two yellow lines?
Oh, that was just a personal preference on a bicycle. Early morning bike ride one morning. So that's what I've got.
So that's what that is.
Yeah.
That's not you. Okay.
Nope. Well, it's me on a bike, but yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Katie.
Hey. Oh, sorry. We are at 6 o'clock. So looks like we do have a quorum of the commission. So I am going to call it to order, and I will ask staff to take a quick roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Mayor Devine is present.
Here.
Thank you. Okay. Wayne Clark.
Thank you, Steve.
You bet. Kathleen Dagenhart.
I see her, but she's muted.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No
Here.
problem. Thank you, Kathleen. Brian Frank.
Here.
John Keckeisen. I think he said he wasn't going to be able to make it. Amanda Nowak.
Here.
Thank you. And David Roshka.
Here.
Thank you, David. Eric Torkelson.
Here.
That is, I'm sorry, Rossi Manka. No, and Ben Holt. No, let's see. So we have 6 present, plus the mayor, and we have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
D will be approval of the minutes from our October 28th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
You have a motion by Commissioner Clark and a second by Commissioner Dagenhart. Are there any changes to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Anybody opposed? The minutes are approved.
Try doing it from your phone. It's probably.
Okay, we will move on to item
Yeah, I
D.
Really?
Somebody I think is bleeding into our audio here. If they could mute themselves.
Sure.
Thank you. Item
Okay.
D is 2A and 2B. Are these? I'm sorry. We have the supplemental. I forgot about the supplemental.
Yeah. Thanks, Mayor. We have a late addition to the agenda here, but it's something that was submitted back in early November. So we just didn't want to forget about it. So it's the proposed medical clinic at 102nd and just south of Lincoln Avenue. I believe we have perhaps some members of
it
their
should be
team
off,
present
yeah.
this evening, and we just wanted to welcome them. What we'll do is we'll just give an overview of a presentation here with our recommendation, and then we can open it up for questions. So the property is 2.1 acres just south of Lincoln Avenue, right off of the Expressway 894. The building itself on the property is about 18,000 square feet. Property is zone C4 regional commercial. And the reason it's here, it is a permitted use within the zoning district. However, there are some changes to the site and building, which are prompting Planning Commission review. So site, landscape, and architectural review is going to be our charge this evening with the Planning Commission. Their game plan is to redevelop this property, reconstruct it basically. It's a former sleep wellness clinic, and the intent would for it to be more of a surgery center. And it would be outpatient basis, so not a hospital, but a more of an outpatient clinic. And there's some changes to the site we'll get into in a moment, but these are just some screenshots, aerial views and screenshots from taking this one from 102nd Street. And then in terms of the hours of operation and just general operations for this business, outpatient basis, hours expected between 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. A total of 60 employees. However, not all 60 would be on site at one time. There would also be parking for 57 on the premise on the actual premise itself. The property to the south is another office building. This is one property within a larger office park, and the office building to the south has a surplus of parking, and they're offering to structure an easement or an agreement with this proposed clinic for up to 20 additional parking spaces. So with the added benefit of that agreement, there will not be a parking deficiency. So let's just take a quick look at the site plan. This is the existing site. The green color here is the building layout. The arced shape on the west side of that building is really just a screen wall. It was meant as sort of a sanctuary or internal courtyard garden area. That is going to be removed. The gray area around it is existing parking configuration. You can see that the front yard here is primarily just grass, this white area here. And then there's a driveway, one driveway coming off of 102nd Street, a handful of parking spaces here in the side yard area, and then the majority of parking behind the building. What's the changes being proposed here are to lop off that little arc shape screen wall in the front of the building, and then to change the configuration of the overall site and parking with the staff and patient load. They're going to need additional parking. And just the nature of the business in itself, with more people coming and going here, there's going to be typically roughly 20 or so patients at any given time that could be here undergoing, outpatient surgery. So they want to make it easy for patients to come park here somewhere in the front or get dropped off. So they provided this little drop-off lane, little rotunda circle here in the front here, and then the main entrance is here on the northwest side of the building. There is an additional driveway being added on 102nd Street, as you can see here, and then they're reconfiguring the parking behind the building as well. Now, initially, staff, just getting a quick glimpse at this early on, we had some reservation about the addition of parking within this large, sort of green space front yard area. But just given, again, the nature of the business, the fact that they're trying to promote ease of access for patients coming in for an outpatient surgery, some of the population is going to be elderly. The employee parking would be behind the building. They're going to be actually landscaping the site quite nicely as well. And in addition to that, adding some green infrastructure to mitigate some of this additional pavement area that they're creating here. We'll get into that in a second. There we go. Oops, jumped. There we go. So there are, this is the overall site and landscaping plan. There is green infrastructure element built into both parking lots. The reconfigured parking lot behind the building will feature, this east bioswale here, where the topography of this site, when it's regraded, will be structured in a manner that water flows to this central bioswale area where it's treated on site, filtered on site rather than being run off immediately, back down to the Lake Michigan in essence. So it's going to be treated here and maintained here within this watershed as long as possible, where it can perhaps naturally attenuate or percolate into the soil here on site. Any overflow, there would be overflow tubes built in that would allow for, in the heavier storm events, for the water to be discharged from the site faster, but or in a more controlled manner, I should say. But the bioswale does slow the travel of water. It keeps the water on site longer, where it can be treated and kept in the same watershed on site a little bit longer, which is good for the environment. And it also helps mitigate, some of the total, suspended solids like the runoff of dirt, gravel, oils and so on that can be treated on site through the filtration process on site. So this is one bioswale here on the east side, and this is the other bioswale on the west side of the new parking lot out front of the building. There's also perimeter landscaping that's going to be added on the front of the site, on each side of the new driveway and along the frontage of 102nd Street. Foundation plantings along the existing building and then behind the building as well. Well, this is I-894 to your east and then 102nd Street to your west. The red lines indicate pedestrian pathways. There is a new sidewalk that's being added from the existing public right-of-way of 102nd Street sidewalk up to the site, and then with the connection to the main entrance. There's also a couple stubs here that are indicated leading up to a dead end right now at the south property line. In the future, there may be some additional parking being added on this office building to the south. And if that happens, they're prepared for, a connection to that future parking lot. That'd be something that would come back to the Plan Commission at a future date. But this is what we have review of at this point in time. In terms of the interior floor plan, this is really hard to see. There's a lot of detail going on here, but this is that front entrance area, a vestibule, and along with the front reception area and waiting area. And then the rest of this, you've got recovery rooms along this north elevation here. And then you have the various surgery areas and then support areas to that, so labs and everything else that are within this portion of the building. So there's quite a bit going on, quite a bit of internal changes within the building. The external changes we'll talk about next are going to be on the front face facing 102nd Street here, and then also on this north face here. There's also some additional windows here on the west elevation and south elevation, and some changes to the service areas on the back, but we'll jump into that next. So these are the elevations. This is the west elevation facing 102nd Street. If you recall, that arced shaped screen wall and garden area are going to be removed. Parking be added out in front of this, and then these are existing windows which will be replaced with a new storefront system on the front of the building. On the north elevation, just wrapping around the corner, if you were to walk around this way, around the corner to this side of the building here, there's going to be a new metal wall added. This is going to be covering or closing in some of the existing windows that are here right now. And again, this is that recovery room area, post-op type of area for people to recover, while the anesthetic and so on wears off. But so that will be a new metal wall in that area. And then there's additional windows on the west elevation, which again are a little bit further set back from this projecting waiting area on the front. Just some pictures. I guess I should have shown these a little bit ago, but this is that screen wall that's going to be removed. There's not a roof over this. It's just a screen wall, open air from above, that's going to be lopped off, and then these windows are going to be replaced. And then these windows here are going to be going right there. And there's also some that curved garden wall here that's going to be removed. So you can see, it's maybe hard to see, but The existing building was built in the 70s, early 70s, and it features a cementitious stucco coating on the exterior of the building for most of it. The front end of it, though, is definitely more modern, and will look more modern, I guess, with the new windows being added. It'll open up, allow a lot more natural light, and with the addition of landscaping, we think it's going to look quite nice. On the east and south elevations, this is the south elevation facing a budding office complex. Again, this is just pretty much a flat, unarticulated wall right now. They're going to be adding a series of windows along that south elevation into office areas and other areas within the building. And then the rear elevation facing 894, a new service overhead door system on the back side of the building. And then they're going to be infilling two other service doors that are currently there on the back of the building. Those will be infilled with block to match or exterior to match the existing building. New doors here for employee entrance off of that rear parking lot. So that was a lot in a little bit of time, but I mean, here to help understand anything as well as the team that's on the line here with us. But in terms of a staff recommendation, we are recommending approval, subject to those conditions in your staff report, which are summarized here. Is basically we want one of the site plan shows a pedestrian walkway coming in off of 102nd Street, but that's not necessarily reflected on the landscaping plan. So we just want that technical item to just be updated in the landscaping plans and incorporated accordingly per the site plan. And then on the front side of the front parking lot, it features wheel stops along the western edge of that parking lot. And we would just, I guess, our preference would be for an actual curb with gaps to allow stormwater runoff through those gaps, just like they did on the rear parking lot area for that bioswale. So we, unless there's something we're missing here in terms of stormwater runoff, we think a poured curb with those stormwater gaps would be a better look for that west parking lot. Our city forester is reviewing the site or the landscaping plans for species and type and quantity that was sent out to him earlier this week. We should have that comments back, and then just window transparency details on any of the new windows. Our preference again would be for transparency, and then if they need privacy, window treatment such as blinds and so on may be a better option rather than spandrel glass. And then on the rear of the property, I believe it is shown on the site plan, there is an existing four-sided refuse enclosure in the very northeast corner of the property. I believe that's staying intact. It seems in fairly good shape to date, but I guess we just need a little bit more clarity on what's happening with that area. Aside from that, the rest of these items here, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are pretty much standard items with this type of proposal. So at this point, that concludes my presentation. And if there's any questions or comments, we're open.
Thanks, Steve, for the presentation. Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, questions for Steve?
Yep, go ahead, Wayne.
Thank you. Is the applicant amenable to the recommendations that you've made?
Are they on the line? As far as I know, I haven't heard otherwise.
This is Jason.
Yes.
Jason Luther. I am on the line, and I think one of the things that we were talking through is just the curbs on the west side. That was something that I brought up to the team initially, more about a fear of because there was a grade change there, moving from the parking lot to the west. And I think there was an issue of grading as well, that when you add that curb line in there. So that was why we ended up with the car stops. But there was consideration of curbing going in that west side.
What does consideration mean? As I understand it, the plan department wants to curb. Are you amenable to that?
Well, we can make it work. I think there are some changes to grade that we're just going to have to make. Like I said, it was something that we brought up internally initially.
So Steve, you can work with them on this?
Absolutely. Yes.
Can you also clarify, Steve, the sidewalk piece that you mentioned? What maybe
Oh,
you're thinking?
yeah, sure. Let's just see. I mean, okay, so this is, ignore this blue line here, but on the site plan, it shows a sidewalk coming off of 102nd Street.
Yep.
And then there's a crosswalk coming across to connect with the main promenade here in front of the building. On the landscaping plan, it was just hard to tell. I'm not sure if it's really there or not, or shown, if it's been considered. It's hard to tell if it's here or not. I'd say it may not be, but so I guess in this area, we just want that consideration being
fair.
portrayed.
Awesome. Yeah,
sure.
Easy enough. Everything else, Mayor, is acceptable. And thank you to the to Steve and the staff. We're certainly excited about the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As a follow-up question, Steve, not so much to this plan, but somewhat associated. It wasn't that long ago that there was a proposal being put forth by Cobalt Partners to put together a project that would run from National Avenue to the new hotel, motel, or whatever it is, which would, I think, include this parcel that was being cobbled together. Was this part of that? And where is that project?
That was a development concept that seems to have
Fizzled.
You know, I think with the pandemic, things have gone into a holding pattern. They've pulled back the reins on that project for the time being. So we'd love to see something like that come back. But I think
Well, I think this is an exciting project and it looks well thought out. I would move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by, was that Commissioner Frank?
Yep.
Thank
All
you.
right. Any other discussion on the motion? Hope none of you are talking on mute, so I hear no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, does this go to the Common Council next?
It will, or no?
No, yeah, you're right, Mayor. No, it won't, Mayor. So it's a permitted use. Medical clinic's permitted in the C4, so it's just.
So we've approved it and it will move forward.
You're correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll get back onto our regular agenda, and there we are on number 2, which has an A, B, and a C. So I'll turn that over to staff.
Tony Giron of our planner is going to take the items here for the market and the lofts, Maker's Row, I should say, and the lofts by Mandel.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Mayor. So the next few items, 2, 3, and 4 are all Mandel Group's Sona development. We have Bob Monnet and Angie Tabrisi on the line from Mandel Group. They can answer any questions you might have for them afterwards. So this first item is for a special certified survey map to redivide 3 lots into 4 lots. So you can see the current lot makeup on the left image, and then the proposed certified survey map on the right. All of the lots except for lot 4 are zoned C3. The lots are currently owned by the city's Community Development Authority, and we need to reconfigure them for the development by Mandel Group. Staff recommends Plan Commission approval for this item.
I'd make a
Approval.
motion to approve staff recommendations if there's no discussion.
Second.
You're on mute, Mayor.
I hate it when I do that. Sorry. Thank you. Was that of items 2A, B, and C then? I'm sorry.
Just A.
Just A. Thank you. Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, item 2A is carried.
Item 2B is to rezone the property at 6600 West Mitchell Street from M1 Manufacturing to C3 Community Commercial District. This property is mixed use in the future land use plan, and the rezoning would match the zoning for the rest of the Sona development and sets the stage for future development. Staff recommends approval.
I make a motion to approve staff recommendations.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion for item 2B? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We will now take on item 2C.
Thank you. This is for a PDD2 removal. This was established back in 2016 to allow greater flexibility and design freedoms for a multi-unit development. This is no longer necessary with the proposed development that we have before us, so it's accomplished its purpose. The PDD2 overlay zone will still remain at the farmer's market. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you.
Recommend staff approval of staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on 2C? I'm hearing none. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the item carries. Now we can move on to items 3A, 3B.
Thank you. So item 3 is for Sona Lofts. If you look at the image to the right, you'll see that Sona Lofts is the blue lot. So we'll be talking about lot number 2 for item 3, which is a proposed multifamily and commercial building, which is a special use in the C3 Community Commercial District. The public hearing is set for January 5th. Next slide, please. The Sona Lofts is a 3-story and 110-unit apartment building with 2 commercial end caps. The unit makeup is primarily on the smaller side of units, with the west right across the street for the most part has larger units. The northern commercial space is just over 2,900 square feet, and the southern commercial space is just over 2,000 square feet. Construction is set to begin next year on May 6th, and they plan to open just over a year after that on June 30th, 2022. Both the Sona Lofts and Makers Row project, which I'll be talking about next for item 4, have a projected cost between $25 and $35 million. We'll take a look at the interior plans. The lower level has 89 underground parking stalls, a trash room, dog wash, and commercial space. The first floor has also a commercial space, but this time on the northern end, has a mailroom, fitness rooms, and 34 units. The second floor has 39 units, and the third floor has 37 units. And just above the northern commercial space, there's a club room, shared kitchen, and a roof deck. Now, taking a look at the site plan, the building has frontage along National Avenue and the railroad spur. Like I said before, the northern commercial space has just over 2,900 square feet and has a terrace reserved for whatever tenant ends up in that space. The southern commercial space has just over 2,000 square feet. There is a pool available for the residents of Sona Lofts and the West across the street. Also important to note is that, can we go back? Thanks. The parking lot is configured to allow access to the underground parking. Also, there's a retaining wall due to grading at the site. There's a retaining wall along National Avenue that is about 10 feet high at its tallest along the railroad spur, and it tapers down as you approach the northern commercial space. There's also a retaining wall just outside of the pool, so if you're standing in the parking lot, it's about 6 feet high right by the pool, and it tapers down to about 3 feet high as you approach the main entrance to the building. Phase 1 will also include the construction of a retention pond on Lot 4, though Lot 4 is being reserved for a Phase 2 development, which we hope to see from Mandel Group in the future. Next slide, please. In their parking plan, they are proposing 154 off-street stalls for the 110 residential units. 89 of those stalls will be underground. 41 will be above ground. That's what you see in blue. 24 of those stalls will be reserved for guests. That's what you see in purple. The green stalls are actually for Makers Row employees. I'll talk about that later. We've noticed a need for outdoor bike parking at this site. And of those 100, so they're proposing 154 stalls for their residential component, and parking code asks for 176 stalls. For the commercial component, they are providing 10 stalls, but code is asking for 16. So in total, 164 are provided and 194 are required. Staff believes that the project does have an adequate amount of parking. If we can go on to the next slide, we can show that there is a parking precedent. When we approved the West, they were proposing 293 parking stalls, and the code requires 319 stalls. Also, 6 Points Crossing, just down the street, has 321 parking stalls, but code requires 456. So the council has waived this requirement, and we expect that they'd be able to do the same for SONA. Farmers market parking. So we've been lucky enough to have the SONA site available for farmers market parking for so long. But after SONA is built, there will be a slight reduction in dedicated parking, but the parking ratio will still have more parking per person than most other similar size markets. The city is currently pursuing shared parking spaces in the neighborhood at St. Joseph's Church, which is just 1 block south of the market, and will continue to be able to use Horace Mann School's teacher parking lot, half a block east of the market. Additionally, there will be some parking stalls within the SONA development itself, which will be non-exclusive parking stalls, meaning some of the stalls on site will have a time limit on them and won't necessarily be dedicated to a specific user on the site, allowing for farmers market patrons to use them when available. Long-term, as the properties to the west of the SONA site get developed, the city plans for even more shared parking, up to 160 shared parking stalls to be shared amongst the future users of the property and for farmers market customers. Once these areas are developed, there will likely be more stalls available for farmers market parking than exists today. And as we know, walking a short distance may be necessary for some customers. This is a typical farmers market experience. Within the parking lot, attached to the farmers market itself, the city is exploring having certain hours on parking stalls which could be dedicated to seniors and persons with disabilities. Next slide, please. As far as landscaping, they have a diverse array of shrubs and grasses. The parking lot has a nice mix of deciduous and evergreen trees. We are asking for them to add vertical landscaping on the retaining walls, since they just seem a little bare. And our forester has noted that they need street trees. Taking a look at their architecture, at the northern end of the commercial space, we have smooth black brick, which you will be able to see a real life image of on the next slide. And then we have terracotta colored window pane, corrugated metal cladding up on top with a terracotta color, galvalume metal cladding, which you'll see throughout the entire building, and the balconies will be aluminum with translucent panels. Here's a look at that black brick on the lower left, and then that galvalume panel that you'll see throughout the building. And then just look at what the dark gray looks like next to the terracotta color and the silver. Taking a look at some other elevations, the longer sides, we have the galvalume metal cladding on top with the dark gray aluminum panels below. Here's a rendering taking a look from right about where the pool would be and looking south at the eastern elevation. And here's a nice rendering from National Avenue, taking a look at what all those colors look like together. And you also get a view of the retaining wall, which is, like I mentioned before, higher on that end as it tapers down as you reach the commercial space. Staff is asking for some more architectural variation or landscaping along the southern wall. There's the just outside of the southern commercial space on the lower level. We'd just like to see something like trellises or something to kind of vary it up. Staff recommends approval subject to the following: architectural variation on the lower level of the south-facing commercial space, additional landscaping on the retaining walls, forester approval of landscape and species, outdoor bicycle parking, clarification of the outdoor patio space for the northern commercial tenant. And some of these have already been cleared up since they were written. Just location and screening considerations for rooftop units. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Are there any questions from the commission?
Mayor Devine, I had a question for staff.
Yep. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay. Tony, the question that I have is the farmer's market parking, since there's going to be, it looks like, the potential of 3 adjacent parking locations. Would that information be able to be uploaded onto the city website so that, you know, patrons who would come to the farmer's market know where authorized parking locations are? And also, would there be the opportunity to have like signage as well, so people know, like, who may not be from the area, what is considered, you know, I guess, authorized parking locations?
Great question. I know we're lucky enough to have the farmers market run by our communications department, and they've been made aware of this and of all of the upcoming developments, and are going to be doing their best to make sure that market goers know where our parking lots are.
And then also, is it even a possibility to just say consolidate, like you have these 2 separate locations? Could that even be like on a section of the pick and save parking lot on National Avenue, where that's just like a dedicated area, that, you know, at least during the farmer market hours?
I don't believe we've reached out to Pick and Save. We're trying our other closer options at this point.
Sure.
I do know that compared to other markets, we are overparked as it is. We do have an excess amount of parking when you compare it, the parking ratio of parking stalls per person. And additionally, the SONA development will have 44 non-exclusive parking stalls that people will be able to use. And Bob Monette has mentioned that they are actually encouraging market goers to park within their site. And in addition to that, we still have the on-street parking as well.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Mr.
Any other
Mayor?
questions? Wayne?
Thank you. This proposal does have a number of parking related questions and issues involved. And just to follow on Eric's point, the farmers market is a jewel for West Allis. And it seems to me we have to do everything possible to support the farmers market. And that means having appropriate parking. And it appears, at least my take on this presentation, that the farmers market is going to be getting a bit of a short shrift on this. And that concerns me. Maybe I'm not looking at it properly, and I would welcome Tony or Steve or someone to give me a better understanding of what's going on with the parking.
I think I saw Bob, raise his hand. You want to jump in?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we were very concerned about it because the success of the farmers market is directly correlated with the success of the investment that we're making. So the plan that we laid out and what really hasn't been discussed here, I think, unless I missed it, is that parcel C of the certified survey map, which is not being developed at the moment, and maybe Tony could use his cursor to show where it is. Parcel C has a development plan associated with it so that the driveway connections are directly off of 66th Street. And it comes in directly across the street from the city-owned parking lot where there are 21 surface stalls. And I recall in our layouts that we provided to the city that we had up to 76 parking spaces on parcel C. And the idea is that those spaces and that development would be promoted, and tenants that would be occupying the buildings there would know that on farmers market days, their parking lot is going to be offered up for public parking purposes as well as tenant purposes, but it is overparked relative to the planned density on that site. So instead of someone kind of hunting and pecking into the depths of our site looking for parking, we wanted to put the parking access for the market right off of 66th Street. And so that parcel that Tony has got his cursor on right now, that has a fairly large reservoir of parking, and we have overparked that project specifically with the farmers market in mind, because it is the easiest, the most convenient, and the easiest wayfinding for patrons of the farmers market.
So if in another 6 months or a year, that parcel that Tony just had the cursor on becomes a development opportunity, and therefore is no longer available for parking, what do we do at that time?
The plan for that site, even when it's developed, is that it's overparked. And you know, we looked at the peak hours of parking demand at the market, and obviously the Saturday hours are the peak hours.
Yes.
And it corresponds with the lowest employee demand of parking for the types of users that are anticipated there. So there's a very logical shared parking arrangement that'll be available. Out of the 76 stalls we had maybe 35 or 40 of those stalls were really driven by the market need of the tenants that are going to be there. So it's, you know, the opportunity to resolve and to fine tune farmers market parking, it really lies more so in that parcel C than it does on shared parking on our site. But that, you know, it's as we went through the number of different iterations of satisfying farmers market parking, it seems that parcel had the best opportunity to do so, and so that's the way we designed the project. We do want to encourage farmers market parking inboard on our project, and the compatible use patterns are there so that when we have a shared parking pool in the middle of our property, the peak demand hours of farmers market parking correspond with lesser demand from our own uses on the site. So those 45 or 50 stalls, those will be there as well. But I think it's prudent to actually overpark your farmers market, because you look at the demographic in the surveys that we did in terms of how far afield people come from to patronize the farmers market. You know, your vast majority of patrons are driving here because a lot of them are coming from very long distances. So the more parking, the better. But we just, you want to do it in a way so you don't have these massive empty parking lots during the week for just a couple of days of usage.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
To piggyback on that, and I apologize if it's already been addressed, but what's the time frame on that portion of the development?
That parcel is is our so-called Makers Row Phase 2. So we have forecasted that site would be in construction possibly as early as next September of 2021. The entirety of this Makers Row project, it's all food and beverage. And it's these are not easy conversations to have with these business owners these days. They're just trying to stay alive. But we have a number of people interested. We do have an anchor tenant prospect for that site. But I would think that next September would be the early start date for that parcel. Maybe into spring of 2022, but we think we're going to fill up Makers Row very quickly. We have an anchor tenant that's going to take 2/3 of it, and so we're looking to move on to that parcel C pretty quickly. But still, as I mentioned before, even with the development of the site, this parking capacity will be there.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move approval.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second that.
I'll let Steve decide who got that one.
Was that Eric or my options here? Eric or was it
Eric or Brian?
or Brian? Okay, all right. Sure.
Brian was, I couldn't tell who the other one was.
Thanks.
Thought it was Dave.
All right.
Okay. Any other discussion on that motion?
If we could briefly, before we vote, Tony, could you go back to, or Steve, if you're driving here, can we go back to the materials? I was just a little bit concerned. The imagery on the screen makes it look like the siding panel almost looks like reflective in their rendering. And I just wanted to, could you point out, so in this image here, that main field around on the 3rd floor, in the image, it looks reflective. Which is that the corrugated material that we're seeing, or which material is that?
That's the material on the lower right.
Okay, thank you. That's what I figured. It was a little bit misleading, I think, in how it represents on my screen.
Good question.
I would offer, just because we spent a lot of time picking this stuff out and figuring it out, the brick is actually a brownish black brick. It's not a black brick, and it has a really nice finish or sheen to it, which gives it a really rich quality as compared to just a flat utilitarian looking brick. So the brick has a whole lot of character in it. And the material palette was selected so that it ties out with some of the materiality you're going to be seeing in a moment on Makers Row, to try to tie these buildings together on that side of the street. The color panels that you see on the building are predominantly translucent glass panels. They're not flat metal panels. So on the balconies and on the railing detail around the rooftop amenity, those are all translucent glass panels that let light through them. So at night they'll kind of shine the color of the panel, and they're not quite as stark as you see it. And the only correction, minor correction, because Tony is a very accurate guy. The only minor correction I'm going to offer is that the retaining wall on National Avenue, we have that now sized so that it's 3 feet to 6 feet in height. Tony had mentioned it goes up to approximately 10 feet in height. But we're really concerned about having too many retaining walls that are too high, kind of creating a trough on both sides of the street. So we worked to drop the height of that wall, and so that the maximum height on the west end is 6 feet. But overall, this site has over 30 feet of drop from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. I mean, trying to land all these ships, on a rough sea out there, this has been a real exercise in grading plan design, and we couldn't avoid having some retaining walls, or else we would have just had buildings sticking up out of the ground kind of unnaturally. So we tried to minimize it and kept it down to 6 feet along National.
Thank you. Any other questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. And that was 3A and 3B, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And then we can move on to item 4.
Thank you, Mayor. This next item is for Makers Row. That's the yellow that you see in the diagram to the right. That will be lot 1. They have a proposed limited food production and restaurant use, which is a special use in the C3 Community Commercial District. Public hearing will be January 5th. The Makers Row building will be approximately 17,000 square feet. It's designed to look like individual loft structure buildings. The anchor tenant will be about 11,000 square feet and will occupy both building A and B. Building C is about 6,000 square feet. Construction is set to begin March 12th of next year and is set to open in late September also of next year. So some notable things from the interior plans. Building A will include a mezzanine level right in the middle. Building B is the shipping and receiving area for the tenant in Building A. And Building C can be subdivided for multiple users. We have some of the interior plans for Building A, which is outfitted for a food and beverage user. About a quarter of the building is dedicated to retail use. 25% will be back of house and offices, and about half will be a production area for that will include spaces for roasting, grinding, storage, and shipping. So you can guess what kind of user we might get there. I don't want to steal Bob's thunder, but maybe you can ask him who he's in negotiations with afterwards. The offices in the mezzanine will overlook the seating area. In this site plan, we'll see that the building has frontage along National Avenue as well as South 66th Street, which is right across the street from the farmer's market. In teal, you'll see that there's 2,500 square feet of concrete pergola area. That's where the outdoor seating will be. And that will be screened by a cedar fence that you see there in red. Surrounding Building C is a 10-foot wide concrete apron. And to add to the pedestrian friendliness of this project, there will be curb bump outs at the entrances. Parking plan. So we'll see that the parts in yellow are the non-exclusive off-street stalls. 22 have been allocated for Building A user, 12 have been allocated for Building C user, and the rest, 35, are non-reserved. But essentially, I believe that all of these are non-exclusive, non-reserved stalls. Like I mentioned before, when I was in the Sona Lofts presentation, 32 stalls will be reserved for Makers Row employees. That's what you see in the green. The users are unknown at this time, or at least not confirmed. So the uses will ultimately determine the parking requirements for this site. Similar to Sona Lofts, the landscape plan has a diverse array of shrubs and grasses. In the plan, they have oak trees along National Avenue, as well as the south side of the building. This is the exterior of the east elevation. So this is the main entrance to the Building A commercial space. We have dark brown metal color at the main entrance, and then the rest of the building is a dark gray metal color. So that's what it looks like, what it could look like. And there you have the pergola over the outdoor seating as well. This is the east elevation of Building C, which is a different color, has a silver metallic. The next slide, we'll see what it looks like next to Building A. Now looking at the western elevation, we have Building A, B, and C right next to each other. So you see the dark gray metal with dark brown metal. Core 10 raw is more of a rust color. I believe Mandel Group has this on another development in the River West neighborhood, the Ballet Building, where Adventure Rock is on North Avenue, just east of Humboldt. That building has a similar material. And then building C here has a silver metallic color. So the rendering on the next slide will show you what it could look like altogether. Staff is recommending approval subject to delineating the floor areas within buildings A and C so that we can figure out the parking calculations and ratios, locations and details of a four-sided refuse enclosure, location and screening considerations of rooftop units, exterior lighting plan provided, a schedule for timing, which they have provided, and outdoor bicycle parking. Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks, Tony. Any questions from the commission on this item?
Mr. Mayor, a question for Bob.
Yep.
Bob, it's Wayne. What is the significance of the name Maker's Row?
Actually the term maker in the current economy is intended to distinguish entrepreneurial businesses regardless of their regardless of the industry that they're in. So there's maker space is a commonly used term for startup incubators types of business space that might be in repurposed industrial buildings. You might find it in, areas of the near south side of Milwaukee or in parts of cities where they're redeveloping. But the term maker space is a well recognized term. Actually, in this case, the anchor tenant that we're speaking with, who, unless you don't get the news, you know it's Valentine Coffee. They're gonna bring their mothership to West Allis from where they are right now. They need to expand. They're out of space. They're two great entrepreneurs, two local guys that have grown this business over the years. They're going to keep all their other locations. They just need more space, and this will be a new cafe for them. They're the guys that came up with the Maker's Row moniker, and we stole it from them. So I'll give them credit for it. But it's to indicate people that make things, and what we want to see here are people in the food industry that make product, sell it retail, sell it wholesale. Maybe they on part of it, maybe they're working out of a ghost kitchen and they're serving food, they're staffing or supporting a food truck, all those sorts of things, but they're all making different food products.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Tony, could you go back to the, I wanted to talk about the core 10. Could you go back to maybe the, has consideration been given to, and I love the core 10 and I like the look of it, but you mentioned the Adventure Rock building down on North Avenue. The thing with the core 10 is as soon as you put it up and it rains, it bleeds down the side of the building. And if it's not planned for or accommodated, you just end up with the rusty streaks everywhere, which makes it detracts from the look. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up and ask if any consideration's been given to, if that's cantilevered or if there's some places that can run to, or what happens below the core 10.
Yeah. So of course, the architect of that Belay Adventure Rock building, they always go out there and say, didn't it just rust beautifully? And we got stains down the sidewalk and stuff. It is a beautiful tone. And so, and that building won a national design award, so they're all hyped up about it. But what we decided to do here was that there's a product sample that we submitted to your staff, and it's an aluminized product, not a pure Core 10 product, and it has like a pre-patinaed appearance to it, but it's not going to rust. It's a non-rusting. I don't want to say it's a faux or fake Core 10, but in essence, that's what it is. And because exactly what you said, David, is that there are lots of architects that are challenged with how to detail Core 10 because of the rusting, and also because there's a galvanic action between it and other materials, and it can actually eat away at aluminum and other materials that are up against it. So we were lucky enough to come up with a substitute product, which is one of the samples that I think was shown a little earlier. And so it's not a true Core-10 any longer. It is this substitute Core-10 that will look, I mean, it's really hard to distinguish it from the real thing. It's a great product, and we're looking at using it on some of our other projects downtown as well. But that's the long answer to your short question.
No, that's great, and I appreciate it, because I do, yes, as architects, we love the look of that, but it's messy if it's not done correctly or well. So thank you for that.
While we're on this slide, I just want to mention that at this point, we don't know yet the material overhead doors that you see there on the right of the image. That will also be a condition of approval, just knowing the materials.
Yeah, that just doesn't look right yet. I mean, we're that building is sheathed in the Galvalume product, and those those doors, I think those doors have these kind of modern, these gasketed window systems, but the doors are supposed to be a Galvalume like panel, so they all match out, and they're showing like they're white painted. They're not going to be white painted the way they're shown here. That just is incorrectly rendered.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, and we did have a motion, correct? I'm trying to remember now.
If you need one, I'll give you one.
We'll need a motion in a second.
Okay.
I'll do a second.
We got a motion by Commissioner Clark and a second by, was that Brian?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that wraps up item 4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we can move on to items 5A, 5B.
Thanks, Mayor. Katie Bennett, our lead planner, is going to address the Perspective Brewing Company.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Mayor. So Perspective Brewing has submitted an application to open a brewery at 7506 West Greenfield, which is a small little building right across from City Hall. And this is in our downtown C1 business district, where a microbrewery is considered a special use. So there will be a public hearing to address this on January 5th. So Perspective Brewing is proposing to brew and serve craft beers, both traditional craft beers as well as non-alcoholic craft beers. They'll have an interior tap room, an outdoor beer garden, and a food stall truck in the back where they can have those options for folks as well. They are currently proposed to be open Monday through Wednesday to start off their business, but are planning to expand over time as their business and demand grows. Similarly, they're going to start with 4 employees and then adjust as needed. Looking at the interior plans, Steve, if you could just hit the space bar or whatever button. There's a couple pop-ups here. Yeah, we have a bar and seating area that will be installed, new restroom facilities that are going to be brought up to code. And then you'll see where the stairwell is, they're actually going to open up that area into the basement so that you can see the brew tanks below. There'll be a guardrail there protecting that space. But I think that's a really cool feature that'll add some, element of fun to that space. So looking at their architectural plans, there are not a lot of improvements being made. This building did have a facade grant through the city recently, and it still looks really, really nice. They are adding this original feature on the very cap of the building that I guess was found in the basement or something along those lines, which is pretty neat. And then the mural that was recently installed as part of the West Dallas Living Streets program will remain there as well. The rear of the building, there'll be a little more work too, some tuck pointing and painting. They'll be replacing that rear door with a double set of aluminum and glass doors, adding a steel and cedar awning above the doors, and then also adding some concrete stairs and ramp to allow, to bring from grade up to the doorway. And on the left side, that enclosure is a cedar enclosure to block the existing air conditioning units. And looking at the site and landscape plans, you can see that they will be adding a patio space in the back. It will be enclosed by a cedar fence. There will also be a refuse enclosure added, and then again that space for the food truck stall. There will be landscaping as well around the patio area. Just some images, the existing site, and then a rendering of what it will look like from pretty much the same spot. And so to address parking, there is only one stall on this site, and on the weekends it's intended to be used for the food trucks. However, as is pretty common with downtown business districts, there are municipal parking lots nearby as well as street parking. And so staff does not believe that that there will be any issue with parking for this site. So staff recommends approval, subject to, I think the only info I really needed was some the specifics on the paint color. And there are representatives from both the brewery and the architectural firm here if anyone has any questions.
Thank you for the presentation, Katie. Are there any questions from the commission?
I'd move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right. There's a motion and a second. If there's no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll move on to items 6A, 6B.
All right, so 6A and B is related to Piece of Love. It's a proposed bakery at 6768 West Lincoln. It's at the corner of Lincoln and Beloit, formerly the Treasure Pickers, I think is what it was called. And so under our current zoning, a bakery is considered food production limited, which is a special use in the C2 district, and a public hearing will be held to address that on January 5th. So Piece of Love will be creating personalized cakes and other desserts, as well as offering floral and balloon arrangements. And their proposed hours are Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. with 2 employees to start. Looking at their interior floor plans, the left side of your screen is where the entry is. So folks will come in and there'll be the sales area where there'll be some floral arrangements and some other coolers with other food products and treats available. And then moving back, there will be a, I think it's number 19, I believe, is a service counter from the bakery area to the sales area. And then this kitchen space will be, part of the remodel. So while there were no architectural changes proposed as part of this application, staff did speak with the applicant, and the applicant and the owner are working together and have agreed to do some tuck pointing on the front of this building just to address some of the more rough areas of brick here. And also looking at the rear of the building, they're going to be painting that to kind of give that a fresh new look as well. The existing sign is non-conforming, and so as part of the approval of these updated plans, we are requesting that the sign be removed within 1 year, and that plans be submitted to show that, and a sign letter from the owner to confirm that will happen. The existing sign is 24 square feet, and there are 2 of them that connect. Our code allows for 1 projecting sign with a maximum of 16 square feet, so quite a bit larger than what's allowed on that site. A new refuse enclosure will be installed, sort of where that van currently is in the photo, I believe. And I also spoke with the applicant, and her and the owner are working together to address this landscaping area on the side, and they'll be submitting a scope of work related to that, just to, again, clean that up and make this space look nicer. And so this building traditionally has not had parking available for customers. There is street parking available on either of the residential blocks, and then during limited hours, there is parking available on Blight Road as well. And staff is recommending approval of this, subject to the things that I just presented related to showing the scope of work for improving some of the exterior of the site, removal of that sign, and some additional info about the landscaping in the back.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mayor Devine, I had 2 questions for staff.
Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, Katie, could you provide me just like what a little bit of background on Piece of Love, if you're able to? Is this a new business or like an existing business moving into a new location? And then the second question that I just had is, should there be an ADA parking stall identified on the site plan? I mean, is that critical or not? So those are my 2 questions.
Sure. So the first one, I'm glad you asked. Actually, Piece of Love is a new business. She is currently, I believe, working out of her home and has expanded, and so she is expanding to a storefront. And she's also partnered with Kiva, which is our lending program, and the city provides grant and loan funds for that too. So she, I believe, currently has an open, I probably should have provided a link to it in this presentation, but I think she has an open page right now where you can go and donate to her startup fund, because she, in order to get the assistance from Kiva, is required to collect a certain amount of matching funds from friends and family and community and other networks. So if anyone wants to go to the Kiva page and donate to Piece of Love, I'm sure she'd greatly appreciate that. And then in terms of the parking, I may have to follow up on that one. Stephen, maybe you can speak to this. I believe as part of the special use permit, we can make it so that it is not a requirement of any kind. As was the case on the previous example, it is not required to be there. And so whether or not we want to make that a priority, we could do that and perhaps make that stall that's in the rear be dedicated for that purpose. I don't actually, but the accessibility to the storefront is actually on the front side.
Yes.
So, I think that would be challenging.
Right. I mean, the code will likely require it. I mean, just the ADA standards, but I guess we'd also have to understand too the means of on the floor plan, I was just trying to look at that before. Can the public, I mean, the employees certainly come in the rear, but I think most of the public is focused on the coming in through the front door. I'm just, oops. I skipped here, the back one. Bear with me. So we will follow up with our building inspections department on the ADA parking. It is typical to require an ADA parking stall. I guess the question would be, what you'd have to do to go about getting that ramping and so on to access.
I think it's required if you have a parking lot, but because there is no parking lot, I believe it is not required.
Yeah.
Can I jump in and comment? What we've seen in most communities, if the street parking is provided, typically that's where you can pick up your accessibility, because if their front entrance, on the city sidewalks, there's usually an accessible approach at the corners. So if the street parking is provided adjacent to the building, typically that meets the accessibility requirements in most communities.
Yeah, and I think that's traditionally been the case for any sort of project that we have that does not have parking, like in our downtown, for example.
Any other questions? If not, does anybody wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendations.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we can move on to item 7A, 7B.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next item is the Visibility Center. This is the former Sam's Club location on Highway 100 at 1540 South 108th. Jim Curlin and some of his team are here with us this evening. Participate. And so basically, this had been before the Planning Commission previously for consideration of an ordinance amendment. And while the Planning Commission recommended, denial of the ordinance change, the council approved it. So it is a special use currently within our within our zoning ordinance. And training centers, counseling, workforce development facilities, operated by a nonprofit with the purpose of enabling jobs and career opportunities for persons with sensory or physical disabilities is considered a use allowed within the C3 district. And there will be a hearing on the special use on January 5th. To get into the operations, some of this may seem familiar to the Planning Commission because it was used previously, but in terms of the general operations, the floor areas, it's a 130,000 square foot building. The former Sam's, now Beyond Vision Visibility Center. The floor areas would consist of about almost 50% of it being administration and commercial services. That would be in the phase 2 portion here of this floor plan on the front end facing what is now a parking lot out in front of the building. This is the west side of the building. Highway 100 is further out here, the parking lot out in front. So about half of it is 47% to be administration and commercial services, and then the remaining balance is a combination of like flex space with light manufacturing, assembly, kitting, labeling services, and then they also do have a smaller portion of it that would actually be machining operations further back in the building. That would start in phase 1. So right now, I guess with the consideration here, their game plan is to start demolition within the building and then to start the build out in the light manufacturing and flex space here on the back side of the building. And then in phase 2, next year, work towards the implementation of the commercial portion on the front end facing portion of the building. Beyond Vision currently employs about 112 people. With their future plan, they hope to employ up to 300 persons over the next several years. And their hours of operation are 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. on a Monday through Friday basis. They do have truck deliveries and traffic to the site, about 5 semis per day, and then also about 2 or so smaller parcel types of trucks that would be visiting the site. In terms of the little bit more detailed look at the general floor plan here, this is the, I guess, light manufacturing area. And then this is also considered light manufacturing, but I guess even lighter still, if that's a term. But I mean, it's this is where the kitting and labeling services would be happening. Some of the machine services would be happening back in this light manufacturing area. And then there's also an existing loading dock on the very far east portion of the building. And that will remain for truck deliveries and stocking and so on. They're also proposing a small dog run on the south side of the building. They'll have an employee break room and common area here on the south side with a new patio outside of the employee lounge area, and then the administrative areas, and then some of the co-work space that they would be reaching out to broker with other similar tenants that they partner with that are within their wheelhouse would be happening up in the front end of the building. So you can see here they're also proposing some significant site landscaping changes out in front. The site currently has roughly about 650 parking spaces, and the changes that they're going to be making with the additional green space out in front, removing roughly about 300, over 300, between 300 and 350 parking spaces. They'd end up with about 299 parking spaces being provided after the landscape updates are done. The parking required for this use, the combination of uses here, is about 255 parking stalls. They're also going to be we have a meeting later this week with Beyond Vision, as well as Milwaukee County Transit and the Department of Transportation, on coordinating with them on best practices for providing pedestrian access to the site. West Allis, we are served by the Milwaukee Public Transit system, and Highway 100, Greenfield Avenue are common routes that will serve this area. And there are, existing, we'll get into a little bit here, but this is the landscape plan. There's also pedestrian walkways within. And this is the slide I just wanted to talk about circulation a little bit with access, pedestrian access. As you can see here, the dark black dashed lines here are proposed pedestrian walkways through those new landscape areas. And there are existing bus stops at both Highway 100 and Orchard, as well as Highway 100 and Lapham. Now, Lapham pretty much dead ends right here. It goes further west. It crosses Highway 100 and runs further west, but it pretty much stops here at Highway 100. But there is a bus stop at Lapham. That Lapham Street bus stop does have crosswalks, a signalized intersection where people can cross from the east to west and vice versa. So one side of the street to the other. Is also a bus stop on the west side of Lapham. At Orchard Street, however, this would really only be for people coming from southbound, getting off the bus here. There's not a crosswalk leading to the west side, but there is a city sidewalk that does enter the site and then could make connections here with these pathways up to the building and the front entrance. So this is some of the stuff we're going to be talking about coordination. You could see on the right-hand side here, the mode of means of getting to work for their employees now at their current location. About 15% of their 112 employees use Milwaukee County Transit System. Another 15% use some other means such as Uber or Lyft or a family or a friend. And then the vast majority are using paratransit, which is a door-to-door service, taking you from home or somewhere close to home to work. But so these types of things we're going to be coordinating with county transit, as well as perhaps the likelihood of a dedicated deviation from Route 28 here that could perhaps enter the site and drop people off, closer, to the front door, perhaps front door service, or perhaps here on this common access way between the retail outlets, and the green space, just to make it a little bit easier for getting people closer to where they need to be. And the red marks here are just some identifiers of where potential crosswalks could be. There's quite a bit of traffic with Starbucks drive up, McDonald's drive up, drive through. The retail shops are not that intense, but I mean, Starbucks and McDonald's are heavily used. So we just want to make sure that, that we are doing what's best, I guess, for the majority of people that come to this site to work, and or just visiting. So it's part of our recommendation. This dashed line here, the red dashed line coming in, is a potential contingency that, if needed, there could be a sidewalk that would extend from the general location of this bus stop on Highway 100 in Lapham east into the site, where it would make it across to the green space over here, and a walk path that would then get you up to the front door. In terms of architectural, there's really not much changing on the exterior architecture of the building. Majority of changes are going to be happening within the building. The most significant changes in the exterior are going to be, repainting of the exterior surfaces. There's a lot of existing masonry, that's already been painted. Sam's Club had painted it initially, and then repainted it later on when they re-imaged. Beyond Vision's no different. They want to, color it with their tones here. They're looking at two different gray tones on the building, and both the cornices and the exterior elevations. The stonework that's currently there is not going to be covered over. That's the columns that you see here on the west elevation. These facades here with more significant stonework are not going to be covered with paint. Actually, Plan Commission approved the color scheme previously back in August. The one area of potential would be on this south elevation, where the former service tire center was for the big box store. And this will be the employee lounge area and common area. And Jim Curlin has indicated that, they'd like to sort of explore different ideas for maybe creating more of an open air environment between the inside and outside, to make that connection with the patio they want to put in and the dog run they want to put in. So we'll be exploring that with them. Some possibilities include, like those glass overhead doors that you see on many restaurants and assembly areas, which are a nice feature. So we are recommending approval, subject to the conditions in the staff report. There have been a couple things that have been satisfied since the writing of it, but in general, we want to just sort of take a look at those exterior elevations, work with Beyond Vision on those elements for those overhead garage doors, the sidewalk connections, driveway approaches and crosswalks being delineated, and then also coordinated with Milwaukee County Transit System, as well as Wisconsin DOT. Again, meeting with them later this week. Hope to have more resolution to that. We would ask for Planning Commission's, blessing to continue to proceed with Beyond Vision, working with them to develop what's best for the site and their employees, as well as the city. So with that, can open up for questions. And if there's anything else, Jim, that you guys would like to clarify from your perspective, feel free.
Thanks, Steve. Are there any questions from the commission? Hearing none. I don't know if Jim, if you had anything I wanted to add.
No, I just was here to answer questions. We've presented to the Planning Commission before. So
great. If there's no questions, is there a motion?
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. If there's any other discussion on the motion, hearing none, All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Now we'll move on to item 8A, 8B.
Thanks, Mayor. This is the Dessert Cafe. It's a former office building at 6923 Beecher Street. And continuing on the success of Beecher Street, Mark is proposing a small cafe retail shop within this. It's a small lot, small building, 900 square foot building on the south side of Beecher Street. The area is zoned C2 neighborhood commercial district, and restaurants, limited food production types of uses are all considered special use within that zoning. Public hearing has been scheduled for January 5th. And in terms of the operations, again, a small boutique shop. Now, they're not going to be making bakery here or sweets. However, they are going to be serving coffee and teas. They may also need a liquor license for wine and as a complement to some of the desserts they're going to be serving. So they're going to be, Mark's plan is to purchase wholesale products, sweets and so on, bakery, breads from popular metro area bakeries and shops, and bring them here to West Allis, where they would be kept cool and fresh until served either on site or taken away for consumption off site. So that's the general game plan. There will not be a commercial kitchen or anything like that within this building. It's primarily just a cooler addition they're going to be adding on the backside of the building. The hours of operation are going to be from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily, and there will be some limited seating within the building should people want to hang out for a little bit, 4 to 5 tables within the building, and then another 2 or so bistro tables out in front of the building on a patio space he's going to be creating out in front. This is just a very general floor plan layout. Beecher Street is in the upper top portion of the page. The entrance to the building is here. There will be a new bathroom installed, new plumbing and so on internally, wash sinks and so on. And then some new awning and new windows throughout the building, especially on the front of the Beecher Street side, awnings above, and then the cooler would be on the back side of the building. Now, the what's not indicated here, this cooler will actually be detached from the building. I think as shown here, it sort of makes one think it's going to be attached and be accessible from within the building, but that's not the case. It's going to be a detached cooler, and so a separate freestanding structure, metal walls with a rubber roof, designed to be outdoors. And just in terms of the exterior, the brick is primarily, it's brick along the storefront, Beecher Street. The sides of the building are cement block that's been painted white. The form of that will primarily remain. There will be some infill of doors on the east elevation along the alley. And then the storefront, the brick masonry on the front of the building is going to remain the same, but you can see on this lower picture here on the lower right, the new fabric awnings that are going to be placed over the entrance and the new windows. These are brand new windows that will be installed to replace glass block on the front of the building. So the building code, my understanding right now, at least from building inspections, that if the cooler is attached to the building, it will require potentially masonry walls and a roof. However, if it's detached, I think there are some flexibility. There's a little bit more flexibility there where it could exist without the masonry walls or roof. What Mark is indicating to me is that this will be a detached building. There will be some separation again between the building and the new cooler. And so he's not proposing to put a masonry wall up unless, of course, the code requires it. And if code requires it, it may be cost prohibitive to go further and add brick walls or masonry walls and a roof. And it could potentially place the cooler portion of this business out of reach in terms of budget. So we will cross that bridge with building inspections and Mark's architect as we proceed. But this is a site plan that shows just some more particulars with the new patio area and a couple of seating chairs out in front, and then the 4 parking stalls behind the building, 1 ADA, the cooler area, and 4 parking spaces are provided on site, and the zoning ordinance requires 5. So we would be recommending council approve this, subject to consideration of a 1 stall deficiency. Beecher Street is the type of neighborhood commercial street where, with the success of other properties in the area, it's a lot of it was developed back in the 20s and 30s before we had these massive parking lots and all the cars. We want to kind of keep it that way. We want it to be sort of a walkable, definitely a walkable area in close proximity to residential. So there is definitely street parking within the area, especially along Beecher Street, which will be utilized in addition to whatever is provided off-site here. So we're recommending approval, subject to the conditions in your staff report. Just basically some additional details on plan, indicating the furniture and fixture layouts within the building, and then that cooler question about whether or not the masonry walls can be required or not. If masonry walls are required as a condition of code, I guess we would opt for something that's going to match the building as best possible. If no masonry walls are required, then I guess we're not requiring a masonry wall or a roof. However, we would ask that the cooler be adapted to best tie in with the color of the main, or complement the main building, and potentially some additional landscaping in the rear yard. There is an existing fence along the west property line, which does provide screening. Really, the only part of that cooler that would be visible would be from the alley, the east elevation. So we don't think it's going to be an eyesore by any means. It's back of house, behind the building, off an alley. We don't think it's going to jeopardize, the aesthetic or the quality of this project if it is just a standard galvanized or metal cooler with a rubber roof. Are there any questions or additional comments?
Any other questions, or any questions rather from the commission? If there are no questions, would anyone care to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
You have a motion by Commissioner Brian Frank and a second by Kathleen Degenhart. Commissioner Kate Degenhart, thank you. If there are no questions on the motion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move on to 9A, 9B, Pope Auto Works. If anyone's talking, I can't hear them.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you. I did
Sorry.
it. I did it. So
We're all good.
Yeah. Thank you. Nick Pope is the owner operator of Pope Auto Works on 102nd and Greenfield Avenue, and he has his existing operation was approved back in 2015 as part of a special use and site and landscaping process, which Planning Commission and the council both weighed in and approved. He's done a very nice job of landscaping and cleaning up the site. It was previously an auto repair shop on the corner of 102nd and Greenfield, and then this is pre-2015, and then there was I think a Meineke, like a muffler service on the 10214 property. So they are 2 separate properties, and but the same business. He's going to continue doing auto repair, but what he'd like to do is supplement that with indoor car sales, up to 5 vehicles. The property is zone C3 commercial, and car sales are an allowed use as a special use within, as long as it's an indoor sales use. It cannot be outdoor, sales by any means. So the site plan here is what was approved back in 2015. It's really not changing any, but what's highlighted here is the area where the car sales would take place. And what by car sales, what this means is that it's he offers courtesy vehicles as part of his repair service, so that if someone has an extended repair that's going to last a little bit longer than normal, he actually offers a courtesy vehicle that someone can loan until such time that their car is fixed and then they go on their way. So these courtesy vehicles will be basically vehicles that he's fixed and he'd like to offer them for sale. He'll have a discrete tag on the internal side of the car, not in the not outside. It'll be placed inside the building. It's not going to be a car that's parked outside at all for sale. It's going to be very discreet and really just it's an option to let people know that, hey, if you're interested in this vehicle, maybe your car is beyond repair, but maybe you're interested in this courtesy vehicle, it'd be an option for them to consider purchasing that vehicle. Again, those cars would be kept indoors and not out on the lot for display. The hours of operation really aren't changing. They're staying the same as the existing operation, but this would be considered an amendment to his existing special use, which was geared primarily just for auto repair. So this is an additional complement, which does trigger review before Planning Commission and again in Common Council on January 5th. So we are recommending
approval.
Second.
The one component I'd like to just add is that we're asking that he do a certified survey map to combine the two lots on that 10214 property. And he's asking for 1 year. That's, I guess, okay with staff, if that's okay with Planning Commission.
I'm assuming that doesn't change the motion or the second?
No.
All right. If there's no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 10.
Thanks, Mayor. Winter Services is partnered with our City Department of Public Works to provide some brine services, and they'd like to actually, in conjunction with the city, add some additional brine tanks on the south side of the existing building at 2100 South 116th Street, which is just north of Lincoln Avenue. And it's zoned M1 light manufacturing. It's an existing use. It's been there since 2012. And we are, the reason it's here before us is it is considered a site change, and there are site landscaping considerations to take into account. So that's why it's before us. So with respect to the proposed layout, the existing building is here. The existing brine tanks are in this location. There's 3 more that are going to be added behind that. They'll be out of sight and behind the existing enclosure. There's an existing salt storage structure here, and then another one here on the southwest corner of the site. What staff is recommending is that there's landscaping be added to the existing planting bed along 116th Street and then wrap around the corner. We'd like to see this put back. It was there previously, and then over time has just gone away. So there were a number of 30 or so arborvitae trees, which did provide ample screening for the outdoor storage area here. So that's part of our recommendation, which would be the updated site plan to show new landscaping, replacement of arborvitae along 116th, as well as commercial vehicle parking. 2 and 3 are standards as part of the site plan process.
Mr. Mayor, a question for Steve.
Go ahead, Wayne.
On this landscaping, if this hadn't come before us, what would we have done about the fact that this tenant is allowed, this owner is allowed this landscaping to disintegrate?
It was on our zoning inspector's checklist of properties to follow up on. It was noticed last year, and it's something that it has been on a list to pursue.
But we go through all this effort to have landscaping. This is just another example the fact that we do not follow up. So we put something on a list and nobody does anything about it. I haven't understood this for the last 25 years. I mean, why do we go through the exercise is probably what I'm saying.
It's there so we can, and we do, Wayne. I mean, we do. There's quite a bit of of all the commercial properties, multifamily properties, industrial properties out there. It's a never-ending battle. Some are more blatant than others, and this one just happened to be on a list. Maybe not approached this year, but now it is, and I guess that's one of the positives of the site landscaping architectural review process. If there is a nonconformity, if there is an issue like this, when you want to make the next investment, it's brought up, and we can catch up that way as part of the permit process. So not perfect by any means, but something that we can achieve.
I would just add to that, Wayne. Yeah, our zoning inspector has a tough job and a lot of work, and definitely tries to go after these properties as best as possible. And I think an actual real improvement that will be coming as part of the new budget. The zoning administrator was actually approved to be moved into planning, so we will have a lot more direct communication and have her as part of our direct team. So I think following up on sites like these will be much easier to get addressed as we notice them and have these discussions.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, Katie, you eloquently stole my thunder. I was going to say that it's been a challenge to, and this goes beyond just landscaping and things, but even property maintenance issues, and we're always reacting, or I should say often reacting to complaints as opposed to sending people out and just going street by street. Time permitting, we do get people out there to do inspections, but it's a very similar challenge of how many bodies we can hire, how much manpower we can afford, and again, it's the state has not been doing municipalities favors on letting them make local decisions when we have to deal with all of the levy limits and expenditure restraint programs. And, if we always have to strike that balance between what we have our community pay in property taxes and what services we can provide. And, utilizing the staff that we do have puts us in a very strapped situation. And there are some reallocation of those resources coming in the budget next year.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks, Katie. I do not believe we have a motion on item 10.
Motion to approve staff recommendations.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. I heard a second. There's no other discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we'll have item 11.
Thank you, Mayor. And Steve, I just wanted to mention, it seems like there's some sort of blinking intermittent message across the middle. Screen. Not sure if that can.
Now it's gone.
It's gone. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So item 11 here
back
is.
Yeah, not sure what it is. I'm afraid to. It's telling me to move this window away from another shared application. I've no idea what that means, but
is it your Zoom?
I'm sure it's probably Zoom, yeah, but I'm not sure how to. I guess I hesitate to tamper with this thing and figure it out while we're live. Yeah,
we're almost through.
Okay,
yeah. You can see behind it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Item 11 is a sign plan appeal at 12200 West Adler Lane. The applicant wants to make changes to their existing freestanding sign, which is also an existing non-conforming sign. They're proposing to update the sign to have an electronic message board on both sides. The proposed sign improvements, however, are not in conformance with the city's sign code. So the applicant is seeking a variance in reaction to the denial of their sign application.
Why would we approve this?
Sorry, what was that?
why would we approve it? Or what's the plan what's the planning department? Steve, what's the plan department's position on this appeal?
Deny it.
Good. I move denial.
Second.
Tony, do you want to just give a quick presentation if
Sure.
anyone?
I'll just say that the proposed sign does not meet our sign code in many different ways, as you see here. Next slide, please. And to consider a variance, we have 3 different criteria, and the sign exceeds the sign code by about 600 square feet. We don't believe that it is of unique or exceptional design. Do they have site difficulties? The property does have frontage on I-94, but they have access to their signage, the freestanding sign on Adler Lane, as well as the existing sign that you see before you. So staff is recommending denial.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion then on the motion? All in favor of denial, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
Mr. Mayor, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I was emailing with Tony back and forth. My name is Bob Jewell.
Hi.
I'm sitting here. I appreciate you guys letting me speak for a couple seconds. I am sitting here with the owner of the property, Roland Vesci, and I guess we're a little bit confused as to why. I mean, he owns the property, the sign. I mean, it's a very unique situation. It's not like we're asking to build a new sign. He is just trying to bring the sign into a more digital format to not only help his business, but we would be, willing to offer some of the ad space back to the city of West Dallas if you wanted to do special promotions for like citywide events. So we wanted to see if there was any types of options like that you guys would be willing to consider listening to.
And I think, there's, in working with staff, I think that they're always solid at getting recommendations put together to present to us. So, I can't speak for the Plan Commission, but I don't know if there would be any interest in going to the Common Council with this, but I'm not sure how the council may feel either, to be honest.
That was my next question, Mr. Mayor. Would this go back to the Common Council then, for like a second look at it, I guess? That was my next question.
Yeah, and I was going to ask Steve if can clarify the process, because I might goof it up.
Right. No, yeah, the next process. So if Planning Commission denies this, there is another chance, I guess, to appeal it to the council. However, I think the precedent has been not to go this route of converting signs, changing the sign more or less. You'd be removing what's there and putting back a new sign, which has an electronic message center, a monopole. So it's a new sign. It does require a permit, and our sign ordinance doesn't allow signs this large.
Would you be open to us just using the existing structure and then taking the signs down and just going digital with it? If we kept the same structure, kept the signage the same and all that?
Again, the precedent has been not to allow that to happen. When you change the sign, the message center on top, going from a static message to a digital message center, it's considered a new sign, which requires a permit. And at that point, we want you to come into conformance with the signage ordinance. And right now you have an existing freestanding sign along Adler Way or Lane, as well as this existing non-conforming sign along I-94. So I guess the best advice would be that if you want to use this, you can continue to use what you have, but to change it, you'd have to bring signage into conformance, and I don't see how that would be possible with what you're proposing here.
Steve, we may want to follow up with the applicant on next steps, because I'm not sure that sign appeal denials actually do go before council.
Okay.
So we might just want to double check on that.
Sure.
Okay.
So then our next step would be to wait to see if it goes in front of the council. Is that correct?
But I would say work with staff and see if there is another option, what it is.
Okay.
We'll follow up with you after this meeting, just with an email or something, just giving you the procedure here on out, I guess, with the denial motion decision before us. And if it is an option, we will, or if it's not, we will let you know either way.
Okay, well, I mean, we're disappointed respectfully disappointed in the decision because the owner of the building owns the property. He's a tax-paying citizen, and it's a very unique situation that we have. So, if there's anything else that we can do, we want to explore every opportunity that we have. So,
okay, noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
If there's no other discussion on the motion, all in favor? Did we vote? I'm sorry.
Yes.
We did vote? Okay.
I thought so.
Yep, we have
Yeah, we voted.
Okay.
motion
Thank you.
second. Yep.
Good. Okay, thank you. Then we can move on to item 12.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 12 is for a certified survey map to combine 3 lots into 1 lot. You may recall from last Plan Commission meeting, we approved a special use for a brewery at 6649 West National Avenue. So now they want to consolidate the sites. The lots are currently owned by the city's Community Development Authority. You can see the current division on the left side image, and they basically want to bring all of it together into 1 lot.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion, there's a second. Were there any questions from the commission? I know we're familiar with this one from our prior meetings, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, item 12 is approved. We'll move on to item 13.
Thanks, Mayor. This next item, I've got a lot of slides, but I can get through it fairly quick. We can come back if any additional questions, but the gist of this is that the city has a light manufacturing district, an M1, which is designated as M1, and we have an M2 heavy industrial district, M2, and that's they're in the zoning books. So the text is in the zoning books with the rules and regulations and standards. The thing here that we're doing tonight is now we need to map it. So we have all the M1 laid out, which has been that way since 1995, and what we need to do this evening before the Planning Commission is to staff is going to present to you the locations where we're considering M2 heavy industrial districts. We did have a neighborhood meeting or a public informational meeting on November 19th, just an informal with manufacturing property owners within the city. And this is the next step, the Planning Commission. And then we'll have a public hearing on January 5th before the Common Council, and they'll consider passing it. So as mentioned, the rules are in the book, but we just need to map the districts, the M2 district to be specific. And these are all of the zoning districts within the city. The purple areas are the existing M1 districts. And since 95, the city's operated with just one singular manufacturing district. So everything from, everything heavy and everything light and in between is within that M1. But in 2019, we created an M2 in the books, but now we need to map where we're going to put the M2. So the next, this is just again, just sort of taking that zoning map that we looked at previously, and now here are all the manufacturing areas within the city, which comprise about 1,100 acres of land, 389 or so properties within the city. Light manufacturing, by its meaning, is something that's more like your warehousing, your distribution and self-storage facilities, research and development facilities, typically less intense and typically non-nuisance types of uses that may coexist in closer proximity to residential and perhaps even abutting commercial districts. Whereas M2 districts are just the opposite, more intensive, the potential for odors, smells, vibrations. So things like, trucking facilities, motor freight terminals, forge or casting shops, concrete batch plants, asphalt plants, waste treatment facilities, Those are the types of things that we're going to want to, that we have in our M2 districts. So here are the next thing is that same slide I showed before with all the M1 areas. In yellow, though, are the proposed M2 zoning districts. So on the far east side of the city, and 54th and Rogers in that area, on 67th and Burnham, in the former Alice Chalmers area, near Toshiba and AC Equipment Services on 66th and Washington. And then in the far northwest corner of the city, off of Curtis Road, 116th and Curtis. So those are the 4 general areas that we're talking about, which would consist of about 138 acres of land and about 37 properties. So just going into more detail then, looking at that north area, this is the old Alice Chalmers area. So we're looking at rezoning, roughly 8 properties here, about 33 acres. There are distribution facilities here. There are heavier manufacturing uses like AC Equipment Services in this area. We feel that the former Siemens plant is up here. We feel that this area is ideal for introducing a heavy manufacturing area, given its separation from adjacent residential. It doesn't abut any nearby residential neighborhoods. It is separated, and historically this area has always been heavy manufacturing. So this is our first recommendation. The next 2 areas that we have here are that far east side of the city on 54th and Rogers Street, and then also 67th and Burnham Beecher Place. The 7-acre site here happens to be Unit Drop Forge. And then further east, this 24 acres consists of 4 lots, including a city waste transfer station. And then there's a trucking operation here, a staffing company and trucking operation, outdoor storage. And then further south of that, you have a Columbia pipe manufacturer. And then there's a flexible, larger office warehouse type of building here with potential for heavy manufacturing uses. So those are the south, a little bit more south and central parts of the city along rail in this case. And again, buffered from residential as best possible on the east. Unit Drop Forge happens to be a little closer to residential, but I guess it just historically, that's what it's always been. Further northwest on the city, on 116th and Curtis Road, this last area has about 71 acres of land, 24 properties. Places like Zignago, Ready Mix, Poblocki Paving, Elite Environmental, all Langer Roofing, all those types of things within this area. One thing I will note is that there are one of the things that we're going to be needing to change in this particular area is the area here of Zignago Ready Mix. If council wants to proceed with rezoning this, those lands of Zignago here at 571 Curtis Road, we're going to need to do a land use map amendment for that specific property itself. I mean, the rest of this could transition to heavy manufacturing immediately if approved by the council, but they may need to separate this one temporarily until such time that we can convert the land use from high density residential to industrial and office. So that'll be a consideration for both planning commission and council. So there will be there may be questions with in the case where certain uses become non-conforming as a result of changing from the existing M1 to an M2, and one could argue that it's likely perhaps already the case with some cases with the text already changing. But if a use does become non-conforming, in other words, we change the an existing M1 to an M2, that use or business can continue to operate as a non-conforming use, meaning something that's not permitted within that zoning district anymore, and continue to operate as long as it's legally occupied and established, and continues to do business. They wouldn't be able to expand, meaning off-site, off their property, and acquiring other properties and doing more, but they would be able to continue to operate on their existing property. So I think this slide kind of further says kind of the same thing. Again, with the, you can continue to do your operations on site, but you just can't expand. In other words, if you wanted to expand, you would have to, you could expand, but you'd have to, your use on that other property would have to be a conforming use. So these are just some common questions. Can I still use the property if it's not conforming? And then kind of the 3 points here. Yes, you can continue to operate as long as the existing use of land remains the same despite the zoning change. Or number 2, the use of land is the same as the previous use without a lapse of 12 months or more. And that the property is legally occupied within 12 months of a vacancy. So in other words, if one use would move out, another could move in as long as there is not that 12-month period of time, as long as it's a similar type of apples to apples type of move. You can also sell your property for the same reasons, essentially, as long as it's being sold to another similar use within 12 months. If you go to the 13-month mark, then the property would have to be used according to the zoning district. And can you change the use of the property if it's not conforming? You can generally. You're allowed to by right to change a non-conforming use to any of the uses permitted in the zoning district on the property. So you can change if you're a heavy manufacturer and you're in a existing M1 district, you sell it to somebody, or you want to change the business operation to something that's light industrial, that's fine. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading this with that box here, but so can you expand an existing non-conforming? And non-conforming uses are generally allowed to expand as long as they expand on the existing parcel of land. So in that case of, maybe if we just pick on unit drop forage for a second, I mean, if that parcel of unit drop forage became M2 heavy manufacturing, they could put a building addition on their property. However, if they wanted to buy a lot across the street and add more forage shop, for instance, they wouldn't be allowed to, because that area across the street is going to remain, at least as we're recommending, remain M1. So they could expand, but it would have to be on their existing parcel. It couldn't go beyond the limits of their existing parcel. And if the property is damaged, can you rebuild a non-conforming use? And the state law will allow property owners to rebuild a non-conforming use in the event of a loss caused by natural forces, wind, fire, that kind of thing. And getting a loan for a non-conforming use, it is possible. And some lenders ask that the mortgagee acquire some written evidence from the city in that case, just to more or less give the status of what you can and can't do. So we often write zoning verification letters to this end to supply banks or property owners with a status of what their current property is zoned, what the long range plan is for it, and permitted and special uses.
Okay.
So as far as existing M1 and M2 districts, go into that if you wish, but I guess I just wanted to, while I'm doing that, I guess I just wanted to indicate that our next step will be, after tonight, would be the Common Council meeting on January 5th. And it would be before the Common Council at that point in time. They have, the Safety and Development Committee of the Council has directed us to proceed with this. We gave them a presentation earlier this year, and they seemed comfortable with the general recommendation that we're presenting to you tonight. But in taking a look here at the new rules, which have been in place since this year, these are it's actually the both M1 and M2 district rules. Purpose statements up above, and then instead of listing the typical list of permitted uses and then list of special uses, which consumes many pages, we've broke this down into hopefully more readable table, which breaks things into categories and subcategories, with a table here for the permitted and special uses within the M1 light manufacturing district, and the permitted and special uses within the M2 heavy industrial district. And then this third column are some of the standards that we require for, land use standards that we would require for such uses. In some cases, there's separation clauses, buffers required, landscape percentages, and so on. So as you'll see, there are also a number of commercial uses that are still allowed in both M1 and
Is there something on the screen? Because I don't have anything.
Steve, I was going to say, we just lost your screen.
Okay. Let me try again here. There we go. Is this?
There it is. There it is.
There we go. So this is that table, the categories, subcategories, M1, M2, and the use standards. So you can see the number of different commercial uses that are still allowed in light industrial and heavy industrial. And then you get into the manufacturing uses further down, where you have concrete batch plants, asphalt plants, different types of food production uses, foundries. We have a category for light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing. In other words, if it's not listed in this table, or if there's still some question about the use interpretation, we do have a purpose statement and definitions that better define and qualify what's light and what's heavy. And the zoning planning department can interpret and make a determination then on the zoning and the use and where it's appropriate within the city's districts. So, so this part here, again, this is what's in the books, and this is official. This was approved by council, passed by council. And the part again that we're doing tonight is really, again, just the mapping, as was indicated previously. So I don't know if there's any questions at this point, but happy to try to answer.
Steve.
Sure.
Any questions?
Yeah, Steve, could you help? So the mapping is the comprehensive plan, or is it actually rezoning these properties?
Yeah, this would be actually rezoning these properties from what they're currently zoned M1 to an M2 heavy industrial district. And it would be, so it's not every manufacturing property, but it's just, I guess it's 137 properties or 137 acres, 38 properties, I think it was, that would be changed.
So does this go to public hearing with Common Council? And then also, what is the process for the property owners? I mean, are they notified, and do they have, I'm fairly new to the,
sure.
I haven't read one of these, but if somebody has a property that's M1 and it's getting rezoned to M2 does that pigeonhole them? If they had future plans, they're no longer able to proceed? I guess, how is that handled? Do the property owners get are they notified? Do they get any sort of say?
Yes. So, I mean, with the requirements, I guess, within our zoning ordinance, as well as within the state statutes, require us for any zoning change, mapping change, or text amendment to the zoning ordinance or the map, we are required to notify property owners. And it's typically a class 2 notice, which is 2 consecutive publications in the official paper, as well as the city actually goes a step further and actually mails out communication of the notice to the actual property owner. And so that's, I guess, what we've done to sort of get people involved on the early stages with the initial public information meeting. And then, so that there is also the other mailing that's been gone out for this class 2 notice in advance. And it's actually probably hitting people's mailboxes now for the notice of the public hearing. I take that back. It's going to be hitting on December 4th and 11th, people's mailboxes. And then, they'll have a chance to, if they haven't participated in that public information meeting back on the 11th or 19th of November, they'd have an opportunity to contact planning staff or their alderpersons in advance of the public hearing on the 5th of January.
Thank you.
Sure.
What do you need from us?
Well, I'd be looking, I mean, what we're recommending is Common Council approval of the M1 and M2 districts. So, I mean, I would be looking for Planning Commission to make a recommendation if you support this or not, or want some changes.
Motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
If there's no other discussion, then all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. And we have one last item, item 14.
Okay. The last item here is a rezoning of a property at 76th and Hicks Street. Hicks Street is on the south side of the Union Pacific Railroad, just south of National Ave. If you know where, let's see, the former, West Dallas Heating and Air Conditioning, just south of that on the opposite side of the railroad tracks. It's a unique area. It's currently zoned M1 light manufacturing, and it was once upon a time a commercial dry cleaner. They went out of business and removed the building, did some considerable environmental remediation and cleanup on the site, and then grassed it over and did some landscaping along the street frontages. But the site's really sat here for probably the past decade or so in this condition. We're looking at doing something here, I guess, hopefully a little bit more proactively, and maybe hopefully heading off a use that, an M1 use here, or, a manufacturing use could be anything from, a warehouse. It could be a contractor yard. So we're trying to avoid that type of use here, and instead, promoting a commercial zoning on this lot, which would open up maybe a little bit better fit for the surrounding neighborhood, apartments, mixed use, that type of thing on this.
I think that makes sense. I'd move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item 14 carries. And then we'll move on to our final item, adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed? All right. That
Thanks,
will
everyone.
conclude this evening's festivities. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take
Quite a
care.
marathon.
Yeah, quite a bit. Thanks for your patience. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good rest of the week.
Take care.
You too.
All right, goodbye.